You know what we're doing here? We're putting a human on top of a missile, shooting him into space, and it's never been done before. I need a mathematician that can look beyond the numbers. Math that doesn't yet exist. Before the Russians plant a flag on the damn moon.
You have someone?
Running what I'm playing.
Catherine's the gal for that. She can handle any numbers you put in front of her.
Don't embarrass me.
This wasn't emptied last night?
I'm sorry, I'm not the...
I love the film, but I have such a passion for that era, and that's especially about the space. When it was a space race, there seemed to be a time in America that people were united, and that's what it made me realize, but also this hidden story that I had no idea about.
Yeah. I think it's an illusion, though,
Yeah.
the country feels united, because I think there's a sect that felt united, and there's a whole sect of people that were cut out of life.
Yeah.
And part of the movie has to deal with that, the
Exactly.
African Americans. It was like, well, great, you know, America got to the moon and somebody else can't even vote. You know, somebody can't hold a job. Somebody has a sign telling them where they can drink or where they can't.
Yeah.
So there's always this illusion, you know, sometimes, you know, and we need decades later to look at the time really effectively. I mean, people talk about the 60s as a time of change, as, you know, and it was like, nobody knew that. Just things were changing. But, you know, later on we look at it that way, and the 50s were rock and roll. Were they? No, they're filled with a level of racism, a level of growth, a level of, you know, the economy coming back after World War II.
Yeah.
It's always mixed,
Yeah.
you know, and in the crush of things going good or bad, always are people.
Yeah.
And this story set against the space program highlights that people were behind the success of us as a nation getting into space. And that, more importantly, it wasn't just white people who were responsible for this success. In fact, the final seminal moment of one guy saying yes had to do with the brain of a young African-American woman who did it by hand, which is beautiful.
Yes, they let women do some things at NASA, Mr. Johnson. And it's not because we wear skirts.
When it was brought to me, I thought, okay, I'd love to be a part of that, but won't people know that it, you know, didn't happen? Because we all know John Glenn and all of the astronauts of the era.
Yeah.
And then to find out that it was actually true, it just made it that much more tantalizing.
Oh, so you actually thought it wasn't a true story when you read it?
Absolutely, because
It seems so unlikely.
Exactly, and plus it just, if it had happened, wouldn't we have known about it? Wouldn't they have been talking about it? So that made it that much more, I had to be a part of it.
I'm gonna end up unemployed riding around in this pile of junk.
You're welcome to walk the 16 miles.
Or sit in the back of the bus.
Kiss me up.
You have identification on?
We're just on our way to work at NASA, sir.
I had no idea they hired.
There are quite a few women working in the space program.
Now let's talk about who you play.
I played Dorothy Vaughn. She was the acting supervisor of the, there were black computers and white female computers, and the computers, you know, actually computed. They ran all the trajectory numbers that the astronauts would be using to come up with their equations to, you know, get into space. And Dorothy was mechanically inclined. She, from an early age, her father taught her how to disassemble and reassemble a car, an engine. And she could do that with anything, with any mechanical thing. So when NASA got the IBM, and it was the size of, like, you know, it filled like 3 rooms, a giant machine, and they couldn't get it to work, she would sneak in there to figure out what was wrong with it, and she finally got it to work. And then she realized that their jobs as computers would be obsolete because the same numbers that they were running, the machine would now compute. So she taught herself how to program the IBM, and then taught the other women, the black women that worked under her, and NASA commissioned her to teach all of the women how to program.
No, NASA hadn't given up on good old-fashioned brain power.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Just working with some of the other women? What was that like? I mean, Janelle, you know, is now becoming like this wonderful actress, and we know her from her music, and of course Taraji. Just what was it like on set to be with these other women?
They both have very strong work ethics. We all have that. We take the work very seriously, but we also we play together well.
Yeah.
And I know that I like to, especially when it's a period piece, I like to immerse myself in the period. And sometimes the only respite from that the barrage of, you know, the sexism, the racism, all of that, is to be able to have that outlet with your work buddies. And I was glad that our characters were close friends on screen because we all became close off screen.
Let me ask you, if you were a white male, would you wish to be an engineer?
I wouldn't have to. I'd already be one.
Don't you know that we're able